Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to a new topic, topic 8, supporting cognitive functions. You probably heard me allude to it a few times. This is my favorite topic to lecture on. It for the most part encompasses the majority of my research interests and really kind of my interests in the field of human factors that brought me in anyway. So without further ado, this one is going to be a bit of a longer topic. I've got several aspects of human information processing that I want to make sure that we talk about. And actually, in particular, we're really going to focus on attention, the role of attention, what is attention, and how it works in human systems, and how do we design with the way it works. Then we're going to talk about memory, and we're going to talk about the two types of memory, working memory and long-term memory, in the model that I'm going to introduce. There's a lot of different ways to think about these cognitive constructs that we can't really observe directly, so people come up with models and ideas and we test them. We're going to talk about memory, attention, then we're going to talk about workload and multitasking and some ways to improve a work context where a human is needing to do several tasks at once. And then finally, we'll talk about some of the influences of stress and emotions on some of these information processing elements and steps in that process. But I like to keep going back to this, this figure here. This is actually from the previous version of the textbook. And I looked in the textbook and there's a new updated version, but it fundamentally is the same. It's the same sort of point I would make, but you might check and say, hey, wait, it's not the same thing. I like this information processing model a lot because number one, it helps me kind of break down, hey, let's talk about attention today. Let's talk about, sensory processing and perception. Why is sensation different from perception? That kind of thing. And then this kind of helps us track, all right, the data that comes into the human and the human cognitive system and is processed by these influenced by these, constructs, and ultimately has a behavior on the world, and then that loops back around, and we can start to describe, a lot of aspects about how humans interact in, a work context. Okay, that is the introduction. This is in general going to guide us through this topic 8 on supporting cognitive functions. So 8.1, let's talk about this concept called attention. All right. There we are. Now, first thing to note with our model is that attention resources is like a spider. I guess it's got 6 legs here. It's essentially influencing each step of the information processing series, if that happens in a series order. And it's kind of has its role throughout all of this. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, here's where it goes in, here's where it goes in. It's all of it. Okay. So in general, what is attention? And I would say attention is our filter from all of the stuff that we could possibly receive and think about. And it's saving our precious cognitive resources, our brain space, for the most relevant, most important stimuli, cues, events, everything happening around us in the universe. Okay. Now, why is that needed? Because our senses are really great at relaying all of the light that struck my retina becomes, a neural signal and is ultimately sent, to other parts of my brain for further processing. All of the light that you see here at today's baseball game is striking your retina and causing a retinal, a neural signal that corresponds with it, right? All of this light. The problem is your brain can only handle about that much at a time. So our brain is a processing bottleneck. Our senses are fire hoses. Our eyes, our ears, our haptic senses, all of them continuously sending neural information to our brain, to our central processing aspects of the brain. And the brain just doesn't have the ability to take all of that in, nor is it really worth the brain's efforts to process all of that, because only a subset of it is relevant. The question is, though, the trick is, does the attentional mechanism correctly select the subset that we really, that's really the most important? Okay, good. So attention, I guess you can call this my formal definition of it because it's a multi-defined term, a lot of different ways. So attention is the allocation of processing resources to stimuli selected for further processing and ignoring other stimuli. So let me break that down. The allocation of processing resources. When we talk about multitasking and workload, we'll talk about the limited pool of mental resources that I have. I can only do so much before I get overwhelmed or I overload one of my resources. That's kind of like saying, here's the limit of what I can handle as a cognitive machine, as a human, right? So the allocation of processing resources, attention is responsible for saying you get 25% of working memory math task, and you get 30% of that driving the car task. So, hopefully you're not doing, too many things at once, but this is attention's role, is basically divvying up that resource so that you can use cognitive space, cognitive functions towards whatever task you're trying to do. Ignoring other stimuli. So we're shutting things out. That is also a role of attention, is ignoring, and it's basically filtering things out, right? So here's all of the sensory input we could possibly take in. What does attention do? It takes all of this noise and it allows us to focus our cognitive energies on what we feel is the most relevant, most important aspects of this environment. All right. So I mentioned this concept of attention and the models I'll talk about. I guess I said that for memory, but attention is the same thing. Attention is not something that we can crack up a human skull and say, yep, that's where attention is, and we can study it in a physical sense. It only exists in the psychological domain. It can only be measured by observing other humans. It can only be studied that way. So hence, with attention, with memory, with a lot of these things in the cognitive realm, we have really smart people who propose ideas. Hey, here's a way to think about attention, or here's a way to think about multitasking. And then the scientific community thinks about it, it debates it, compares it, empirical studies that are out there. And in general, what happens is there's kind of some good ideas that bubble to the top, and there's a whole bunch of other ways. There's a whole bunch of room for new interpretations. So all of that is just for me to say, I'm going to show you the model that I like and that the way I think about attention, but I don't want you to think, oh, Dr. Ferris is like some sort of, well, I am an attention expert, I guess, but I don't want you to think that I have the one answer and then therefore what I say is the only way to think about this. That for anything cognitive, it's too cloudy, it's too ambiguous. I'm always up for different ways to think about it. The key is to think and to just debate from what we know about human behavior, what we can objectively observe, and does it fit those models. Okay, sorry, that's digression. Now let me talk about my model. Okay, so key to the attentional model I want to talk about, actually we call these varieties. So rather than say there is this section that is this type of attention, in the brain, and this is another section, these are just different ways of expressing one general concept, which is we have an ability to process information, and it exists in a space, a conceptual space, where I can devote more of those resources and I can really focus deeply on something. And so you see I've got arrows here at either end of this. I want you to think of this representation as like a continuum with two extreme ends. So one is I'm focusing on very few things, but very deeply. I'm taking all of my attentional cotton candy, all of that energy, and I am giving it all, as much as I can, to this one task. So we call this focused attention. It's really more the ability to stack up your attention is what we talk about with focused attention like this. So if you are exercising your ability to use focused attention or to focus your attention, these would be for tasks like, oh, I'm trying to take this exam, I'm trying to drive this car or do this other safety critical task, where it really warrants you giving everything you've got to that task, because anything else that's happening in your environment is, you consider that less relevant and maybe you want to ignore it. You want to use the function of attention to shut out the irrelevant stuff. So you're taking an exam and your ability to or you're listening to your professor, and your ability to ignore other sound inputs, other visual, other events in your surroundings is also a function of focused attention. Focus is, here's what I want, that's what I don't want. I want it lasered in. Okay. Now contrast that on the other side of this continuum with attentional resources really spread out among many different sources. And in that case, I can't really do any of them very deeply. So we call this divided attention. Again, we can focus our attention, we can divide our attention, and we can exist anywhere in between in a continuum, okay? So there isn't like, I'm in focused attention mode right now, and now I'm switching to divided attention mode. It's a very fluid sort of transition, but it all boils down to, I've got that much energy, I've got that much attentional space, conceptual space, and I either focus it on few things very deeply, or I focus it on more things at a more shallow level. So this is a good example of like, I'm trying to drive my car and text and eat a sandwich and thinking about the show I want to watch when I get home. If I'm doing too many different things, too many lines of reasoning, I cannot do any of them with great depth. So if I'm in that context and I'm also saying, okay, and take an exam, it's not going to work or it's not going to lead to good performance. It's going to lead to likely failures, errors, problems in some or all of the tasks you're trying to do all at once. All right, there it is. Now, what do? We have the power to focus our attention or divide it. We have control over that. Some of it is within our complete internal control. Some of it is driven by what's going on in the environment around us. That's a little bit more for the next topic when we cover that. But our ability to choose, I don't want to say choose, our ability to select from all of the world, this is the subset. And I intend it, I'm trying to focus on this exam, but also things like there's loud noises outside, and those are bumping into my attention as well. Each of those are the role of selective attention. So when you have a conscious experience, it's because selective attention has gotten between your consciousness and the sensory flow, the fire hose of data that your senses are bringing in. Your selective attention has selected some of that fire hose, and it has brought it into your conscious awareness. You're able to process that information deeply. So because of selective attention, we can choose to be more focused in the way that we allocate our attentional resources, or we can be more divided, or a combination of the two, depending on the sorts of tasks we're trying to do all at once. All right, so those are the three varieties. Selective attention, more of a functional thing. Focused and divided attention, more like descriptors of the two extremes for how we can allocate our attention. There it is. Selective attention, ability to select particular inputs. Focused. And I've highlighted a few key words to think about here, right? So focused attention is about the ability to deeply process something and not just, shallow surface level. Key to focused attention is suppression, okay? So if I'm more accepting of a divided attentional state, it's much harder, I'm much less prepared to say that new incoming stimulus is relevant and I'm gonna give some attentional resources to process it versus I'm gonna shut it out and ignore it. When you're in focused attention mode, it's much more about this is in, that's out. Divided attention mode, it's kind of like it's a party and everybody's welcome. All the stimuli can come in. All right. There you go. So, but divided attention is also a way to describe an ability, our ability for attention. We do have an ability to keep multiple different lines of reasoning, information processing going at once. So our ability to divide our reasoning, our perceptual, our working memory resources, and to allocate those, that's also about divided attention. Okay. So being able to do several things in parallel, meaning at the same time. That's the key to divided attention. Okay, I have this really great metaphor I like, and I just worked on beefing it up a little bit so it's a little clearer. So I like to think of, I was just talking about, on this slide, attentional resources like the energy or the cotton candy that I can take and stretch out. I like thinking of it that way. It's probably a little more relevant analogy or metaphor, I should say, to think about light. We've studied now light, electromagnetic radiation in several different ways. But imagine, so this is a metaphor, imagine you're in a dark cave and all around you is potential sensory data. So all around you, you have the ability to process anything in your surroundings. Where you shine your light, your flashlight or your searchlight, right, is effectively the way the metaphor is, this is what I am devoting my attentional resources to process with great depth. Okay. So we're separating the world from dark, non-illuminated cave space, and what is illuminated is available for my brain, for my consciousness to process more deeply. Okay. So that's our selective attention. The guy with the light represents selective attention. I want to see something over there. I point it over there. Oh, I want to see something a little bit brighter. I'm going to crank the width of the beam of the light. All of those are the roles of selective attention to separate the darkness from this is the stuff I'm going to process. If we have one of these nice searchlights like a mag light where we can, adjust the focus of the beam, we may have a more laser-like beam. We're directing more of the luminous intensity of this light source in one direction. That means more beams of light are going to strike the surface. They're going to have a higher illuminance, and therefore I can extract more detail from it. I can see it more clearly, right? I've got a brighter light on this thing. I can see more about what's going on. It's like having a deeper focus, more attentional energy on processing this item. And then the other side of that, if you divide your attention, let's widen the beam. Okay, now I can see more of the space around me. I can see there are no, like bears or beasts in here that are going to get me, but I can't see with the level of detail that I need to see, that particular etching on the wall or whatever like that. So I've got a broader space I can be aware of, but not with the level of detail that I could if I was using focused light and focused attention. So really like that metaphor. It'll probably come up on something. So if you want to talk about that in office hours, would love to further. And just a little bit more to kind of illustrate what I was trying to say with my hands. So, you can have the same amount of luminous intensity. Your luminous flux doesn't change, right? So the light output, the lumens of energy that are output from this source does not change based if the input energy is the same, but we can distribute that light so it's brighter over a smaller area or more of a floodlight, like less intensity, but over a broader area. And this is kind of thing that, a lot of, headlights, searchlights, sorts of optical luminary things, might measure. And I guess I can end on this funny joke of this guy doing a divided attention task to read his book on focusing. All right, so tune in next time for 8.2. Thanks, everyone.